Yeah.
2 weeks ago in Week 7, we only had one ranked versus ranked matchup. And it was very difficult to find 5 big games to talk about. Yet Week 7 ended up being filled with tons of upsets and was one of the most exciting weekends of college football so far. Fast forward to Week 9. We're in a very similar situation, but will we have similar results? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, analyzing and predicting the 5 biggest games of Week 9, and we have some great ones on deck. Sure, it may have been difficult to find these 5 games, but we've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, it's highlighted by the huge Big Ten showdown between Ohio State and Penn State. But we've got a classic SEC matchup up here. We have 2 Big 12 matchups. The 2 lone undefeated teams within conference play are facing off in games that could very well be upsets. And then we have the highest ranked Group of 5 team taking action on Saturday morning in a potential trap game as well. So a lot to talk about here for the 5 biggest games of Week 9. Again, we're going to predict these games straight up. If you want our against the spread picks for these games, make sure to go check out our website, thegridironexpert.com, and sign up for our expert picks. Just $30 for the entire year, a full 365 days. I can promise you do not want to miss out on that offer. So let's break down the biggest games of Week 9, guys. Let's start up here. Memphis at number 7. Cincinnati. Again, the Bearcats, the highest ranked Group of 5 team in the country right now by a landslide. By a landslide. The Bearcats are, as some would say, college football playoff contenders. They're coming off a 42-13 road win at SMU. And to me, that's all I need to know. And that game was all I needed to watch for me to go ahead and pick Cincinnati in this game. Sure, Memphis has won 4 straight games against the Bearcats. That includes 2 last year in back-to-back weekends. They beat them in the season finale, then they beat the Bearcats again 1 week later in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. But you look at Cincinnati this year, the Bearcats are 4-0. Their defense is suffocating. They're allowing 12.5 points per game. They're allowing just 302.5 yards per game. If you watch what they did last week against SMU in Dallas, an SMU team that was averaging well over 500 yards per game, was averaging over 350 passing yards per game with Shane Buechele as QB. They shut them down. They shut SMU down on their home turf, mind you. Now, granted, SMU didn't do themselves any favor. Poor clock management, inability to take advantage of turnovers, inability to score in the red zone. But I contribute a lot of that as well to Cincinnati's defense and what Luke Fickell has done with the Bearcats. You look at Memphis, another reason why I'm going with Cincinnati here is Memphis, their offense and their team as a whole is very similar to SMU. Got a great quarterback in Brady White. He's thrown for over 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions this season. But they're an offense that, like SMU, is averaging over 500 yards a game. The Tigers are averaging 548.8 yards per game. And Memphis does not have the greatest defense in the world. The best defensive stat they have is allowing 127.5 rushing yards per game. Cincinnati is averaging 211.8 rushing yards per game. The only way I see the Tigers winning this game here is if they can stop the Cincinnati rushing attack that was very dominant against SMU last weekend. Stop that rushing attack and force Desmond Ridder to win this game through the air. We've seen him be inconsistent at quarterback. Was great last week against the Mustangs, but the last time out before that, when he played South Florida at the beginning of October, he had 3 interceptions. Which Ridder is going to show up? My money's on the good one. Memphis is allowing over 440 passing yards per game this season. I think Cincinnati lights up Memphis in this one. That defense stifles this Memphis offense that usually is extremely explosive. If they can do it against SMU, they can do it against Memphis. Cincinnati remains undefeated. They remain the highest ranked Group of 5 team. They are the heavy favorite in the American Athletic, and if things go their way, they could be playoff contenders as well. Down to the Big 12, number 16 Kansas State at West Virginia. The Mountaineers are actually slight favorites in this one. Sure, they've got home field advantage, But they're slight favorites over Kansas State, a top 20 team that is sitting atop the Big 12 standings right now, has not lost since that season opener against Arkansas State. Yes, West Virginia is favored in here. The Mountaineers have won 4 straight games against the Wildcats. That includes a 24-20 upset in Manhattan last year. You know, the Mountaineers were getting there in year 1 under Neil Brown. And I think that win over Kansas State really showed what this team was capable of. The Mountaineers got hot towards the end of the season. I think they won, 2 of their final 3 games? And now they've carried that success into 2020. Mountaineers are just 3-2, sure. We know last week they lost to Texas Tech on the road. That's not really something to be proud about. But this West Virginia team is better than their record indicates. You look at their quarterback first off. Jarrett Doege. Over 1,300 yards passing this year, 9 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. Doege was the guy that led them to those 2 wins in the course of those final 3 weeks at the end of 2019. He's done great so far as quarterback this year. That includes a 347-yard day last week against Texas Tech. The Mountaineers are also led by a very underrated running back in Letty Brown, 592 yards and 7 touchdowns already in 2020. You look at Kansas State here, obviously this is a bigger game for them. West Virginia, they're just looking to play spoiler. Kansas State, they've got Big 12 title aspirations here. Remember, they're undefeated in conference play. They're atop the Big 12 standings. They need to keep it that way. Oklahoma State's right below them. They're the lone Big 12 undefeated team as a whole. Iowa State's still contenders. But Kansas State, the problem that they have is they're very young offensively. They've got a freshman quarterback right now in Will Howard, only because Skylar Thompson is out for the rest of the year with an injury. They've got a great freshman phenom in Deuce Vaughn, the leading rusher and leading receiver for Kansas State this season. He's very elusive and very tough to stop. He's a major reason for Kansas State's success over the course of this entire year, really. But I look at West Virginia's defense, though, guys. They were pretty solid last year. They're even better this year. West Virginia's defense is allowing just they are allowing just 261.8 total yards per game. 261.8 total yards per game. They are shutting down the run game. They are shutting down the passing game. Kansas State does not have that. Kansas State's defense is allowing 427.8 yards per game, and that includes almost 270 passing yards per game. All West Virginia, to me, has to do in this game is shut down Deuce Vaughn. They do that, I think you take away the Kansas State offense. You do that, the Kansas State defense, to me, isn't capable enough right now to stop Jarrett Doege and his West Virginia offense. The Mountaineers were able to go in to Manhattan and beat Kansas State last year. The game's in Morgantown. We know that's a difficult place to play, and I think Neil Brown gets a huge signature victory at home against a top 20 opponent. They extend their winning streak to 5 straight over Kansas State. The Mountaineers, to me, just too dominant defensively and too balanced offensively. Kansas State going to have a hard time stopping Doege and Brown. West Virginia pulls off a massive upset and hands Kansas State their first conference loss of 2020. Another Big 12 showdown here. Texas at number 6, Oklahoma State. Texas at number 6, Oklahoma State. Remember, the Cowboys, the lone undefeated team in the Big 12. Undefeated in conference, undefeated overall, and they are probably the Big 12's best chance of getting a team in the college football playoff. Problem for Oklahoma State is their toughest games are still ahead of them. They just got past Iowa State last week. They got Texas this week. Still got to play Oklahoma. They've still got to play Kansas State. Big games lie ahead. This is a chance for us to really see how good is this Mike Gundy squad. Well, one thing you have to look at between the Longhorns and the Cowboys is the series history. First, Texas has won 5 of the last 7 games that have been played in Stillwater. The last 3 games between these two programs has been decided by 1 possession. 1 possession. Texas winning by 6 last year, and then the previous 2 in 2017 and 2018 were each decided by 3 points, both in favor of the Cowboys. This is going to be another 1 possession game. I'm banking on that. I'm banking on another very, very close game between the Longhorns and the Cowboys. But I am going with Oklahoma State, even though the FPI is favoring Texas at 51.4%. So they view it as practically a toss-up. I don't really view it that way. I do expect it to be close. And like the Kansas State game up here, this is a bigger game for Oklahoma State than it is for Texas. Texas, sure, with a win here could keep their Big 12 title hopes alive, but they have a lot of work to do, and they're going to need help to get to the title game. Oklahoma State doesn't need that. They are Big 12 title contenders. They are college football playoff contenders as well. And I look at this Oklahoma State team, the reason that I like them so much in this game is because of their defense. I think we saw how legitimate this defense could be last week in their win against Iowa State, a top 20 showdown against the Cyclones. Oklahoma State's allowing just 12 points per game. They're allowing just 176 passing yards per game. That is a big number for me. You're allowing under 200 passing yards per game? And I get maybe their level of competition hasn't been great so far this season. Iowa State was certainly their biggest test, and they took care of the Cyclones in Stillwater. Texas, their strength is the passing game. They're averaging 307.2 passing yards per game, and we know who they're led by, Sam Ehlinger. Over 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's also added 293 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. So I feel bad for Sam Ehlinger, genuinely I do, because he's doing everything for Texas this season. They've already got 2 losses in a year that people thought they could make the playoff, and a year they thought they could win the Big 12. They're not going to be able to maybe do either. Certainly not the playoff. And Ehlinger is doing everything he can to do it, and he has no one there to help him in Austin. No one there to help him. And Sam Ehlinger cannot win this game by himself against his Oklahoma State defense. You need help. Iowa State, last week, Breece Hall was the hero. 185 yards. Breece Hall was doing everything for Iowa State against Oklahoma State. Brock Purdy in the passing game really didn't do much to help him out, and the Cowboys won. If no one steps up in this game for Texas to help Sam Ehlinger, who's still going to have to do everything by himself, Texas does not stand a chance. Texas does not stand a chance. Add on top of that Spencer Sanders, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, is going to be playing in his second game back. He played against Iowa State and I thought did great. 306 total yards and 2 total touchdowns. His mobility on that ankle that was injured was fantastic. Over 70 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So I look at Spencer Sanders. He's a key in this game. Tylan Wallace, Chuba Hubbard. We know the likes of Oklahoma State's offense. We know Texas's defense hasn't been that great. I'm factoring a lot of stuff here. I know it's a lot to comprehend, but at the end of the day, we're going with the Cowboys. We are going with the Cowboys. Texas takes their third loss of the year. Tom Herman's seat is really getting hot down in Austin, and the Cowboys remain undefeated and the best team in the Big 12 as of right now. Still the Big 12's best chance of getting a team into the college football playoff. The game is close. Oklahoma State gets the win. Over to the SEC. It'd be weird if we didn't have an SEC game up here on the board, right? Well, usually the biggest SEC game of the week is the 2:30 game on CBS. That game this week is LSU at Auburn. That, to me, is not necessarily a big game. Why would it be? Neither of those teams, to me, is in the top half of the SEC West. No offense to either program. But you're looking at an Auburn team that should be 1-4 right now. You're looking at a LSU team, the reigning national champions, that are 2-2 and whose defense has been atrocious this year. This game's going to be better. Arkansas at number 8, Texas A&M. If you just want to take in a good, fun, exciting football game, this is it. Texas A&M sure has won 8 straight against the Razorbacks, but 5 of the last 6 games between these two teams has been decided by 1 possession. That includes a 4-point win for Texas A&M last year. And let's keep in mind, 5 of the last 6 decided by 1 possession. Let's keep in mind how bad Arkansas has been really since about 2017. And yet they took A&M to the wire in every single year since 2017. This game going to be played in College Station. Usually it's played at AT&T Stadium down in Dallas because of COVID. That's not going to happen. This is a big game for both, but like Oklahoma State, like Kansas State, this is a bigger game for Texas A&M because I don't know if you've taken a look at the Aggies' schedule yet, but they don't have any ranked opponents left on their schedule, at least as of right now. The Aggies are the 8th ranked team in the country. If they run the table over their final stretch, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU, Auburn, all of those very winnable games for the Aggies, they are absolutely college football playoff contenders. And if they win out, I think they get that college football playoff berth. Every game from now on is huge for Texas A&M. One more loss, they're done. But if they win out, they're contending. You look at this game here. It's been fantastic in recent years. A&M having not lost against Arkansas since they joined the SEC back in 2012. But this is an Arkansas team that we haven't seen in a long, long time. An Arkansas team that's actually passionate about football. Good at football, dare I say. And it's all because of their defense. This is an Arkansas defense that forced 7 turnovers the last time they played against Ole Miss. 6 of those 7 turnovers being interceptions. Go ahead and give Barry Odom the Broyles Award, which goes to the nation's top assistant, because he's been ridiculous with the Razorbacks in Fayetteville. Texas A&M, we know what their strength is. It's their offense, and it's their rushing offense, to be more specific. They are so good with Isaiah Spiller, a guy who's rushed for 100 yards, at least 100 yards, in 3 of the 4 games they have played so far this season. So you're looking at a very dominant Texas A&M running game going up against an Arkansas defense that's been great so far this year, but if you had to find a weakness for them, it would be in the run game, where they're allowing 177.3 rushing yards per game. So Barry Odom so far has come up with great defensive schemes. When he played Mississippi State, the rush 3, drop 8, held Mississippi State to 14 points and got the win. Maybe that doesn't say much now, but back then it did. Against Auburn, he was able to really take away the passing game from Bo Nix, and Arkansas really should have won that game against the Tigers. And then last time against Ole Miss, shut down that high-profile, that passing attack led by Matt Corral, forced Ole Miss to really run it or force it into some tight spots, and we saw 7 turnovers forced, and they held Ole Miss to just 21 points. Can Barry Odom find a way to shut down the A&M run game and force the Aggies to win the game through the air, force Kellen Mond to win the game through the air against an Arkansas secondary that's been amazing this year? The thing is, I don't think they're able to do that. And even if they are, Arkansas is still going to have to find a way to put points on the board. And their offense is struggling. Texas A&M, they're allowing 75.5 rushing yards per game. That's a big number because Arkansas is struggling to find their identity with the run game. Rakeem Boyd coming back was supposed to be a blessing for Hog fans. Was supposed to be a blessing for Arkansas. I know he's been hurt, but he's been non-existent when he's been healthy. Traylon Smith hasn't been able to do much either, at least on the ground. More dangerous as a pass catcher. The Arkansas's run game practically non-existent. Felipe Franks, he's the best quarterback Arkansas's had since 2016. He's great as a game manager right now. He's thrown for 974 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He hasn't been spectacular, but he's been good enough for a team that's led more so by the defense. If Felipe Franks doesn't step up in this game, Arkansas is not going to win. You would like to think that Kendall Briles will have this team ready to go off a bye week, but I think at College Station, with all those fans cheering on Halloween night of all times, Arkansas is going to drop their 9th straight to the Aggies. I really think that the Razorbacks' offensive woes continue, and I really think that Isaiah Spiller has a big day. This rushing game for A&M is going to be enough to wear down an Arkansas defense that's going to get worn down by an A&M, or worn down because they're going to be on the field so much as A&M's defense makes just enough plays to get the job done. This game, it will not be decided by more than 10 points. I can bank on that. But A&M does get the win, keeps their playoff hopes alive, and extends their streak over the Razorbacks to 9. A lot to talk about there in the SEC. But finally, our game of the week. More analysis on this coming out tomorrow. Number 3, Ohio State at number 18, Penn State. It's crazy that Penn State got put back on the map after their win over Ohio State back in 2016. That was the signature victory for Penn State and James Franklin. That's what put them back and got them back to Big Ten and national relevancy. Penn State hasn't defeated Ohio State since then. They haven't defeated Ohio State since 2016. They lost the past 3. 2 of those coming by 1 point, including a 1-point loss last time the game was played in Happy Valley. Devastating, I know. It's crazy it's been that long. we don't have much to base these teams off of. We've seen each of these two teams play one game so far this season. Ohio State defeating Nebraska 52-17. Penn State, we all know, falling to Indiana 36-35 in overtime in Bloomington. Again, don't let the Indiana game fool you. This is still a very, very good Penn State team, and a team that I think is going to be hungry and angry and anxious to go out there and avenge that loss to Indiana, knowing that their playoff hopes and their Big Ten title hopes are still not over as long as they can get a win at home against Ohio State. Now again, this normally would be the whiteout game, and unfortunately we don't get to see the full whiteout effect, as, you know, most stadiums across the country have a capacity now due to COVID. So home field advantage is not going to play as big a role here. And if you remember, back in the preseason, we said that if the whiteout game was not going to be a sellout, if this game was not going to be played normally with all the fans in attendance, we liked Ohio State. If all the fans could be there, we liked Penn State. We know what it's going to be like. We're going with the Buckeyes. Justin Fields played out of his mind against Nebraska. 20 for 21 against the Cornhuskers. 3 total touchdowns, 276 yards. Penn State defense actually played relatively solid against the Hoosiers, but the offense to me is what sputtered. Keep in mind, this game was 17-7 late going into this game. A couple big plays is what got the Nittany Lions back into this one. And I look at this game, guys. Penn State, they're without Journey Brown at running back, and without him, the run game was practically non-existent. The run game was dominated by their quarterback and Sean Clifford, who had 119 yards and 1 touchdown. Even though Ohio State gave up 210 rushing yards to Nebraska last week, Sean Clifford is not going to be able to be the leading rusher for Penn State in this game, and the Nittany Lions still win it. They've got to find an identity with the run game. Sean Clifford cannot do it all in this game, and you can expect Penn State to win. That's just not going to happen. And when I look at this game, guys, I think with another week to prep, I think Ohio State's defense gets a little bit better. The run defense, bucks up a little bit. The Penn State offense, still very solid, but the difference maker to me in this one, and more analysis again coming out on this tomorrow, but the big difference maker in this to me is the fact that Penn State still lacks a very solid core of pass catchers. You've got Pat Freiermuth and you've got Jahan Dotson. Those are Sean Clifford's 2 biggest targets. Without them, outside of them, Penn State's kind of struggling within the receiving core. So I look at Ohio State, I think they're able to take away that Penn State run game. Their secondary can focus solely on Dotson and Freiermuth. Sean Clifford, kind of like Sam Ehlinger here, is going to do everything he can to win this game by himself. But I ultimately don't think it's enough, and I don't think this Penn State defense has enough to shut down such electric of an offense in Justin Fields and the Buckeyes. This game is closer than many expect. Everybody wants to write off Penn State because they lost one game, the season opener, in a year like this to Indiana. Do not do that. Do not do that. This game will be close. Again, 2 one-point losses for them in the past 3 years. The game last year decided by just 11. It's going to be close. No more than 14 points, but Ohio State does get the win in Happy Valley. Not having a sold-out Happy Valley is huge for Ohio State in this game. So guys, there you have it, your top 5 games of the week going into Week 9. Again, we struggled to find some, but these are the ones that we think have the biggest implications for each individual team and for each conference as well. 2 of these games will be our games of the week. Of course, one of them is Ohio State, Penn State, but stay tuned for the other one that will be coming out on Friday. A great weekend of college football coming our way, and if it's anything like Week 7, where we also only had one ranked versus ranked matchup, it's going to be one of the best, most exciting, and most shocking weekends of the year. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in that description below. If you love college football, this is the place for you, and you will love everything down in that description. Our newsletter, our expert picks, against the spread picks for all of our college football games over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Our Bet Now offers, our Patreon offers, college football content year-round, 24/7, 365. You can find it all right down there in the description. Check it out. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.